Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your welcome. Thank you, Claire, for inviting me, and thank you, Linda, for your opening remarks. Acting Minister for Children and Young People, Linda said that you don't often hear politicians talking about how important loving relationships are. Acting Minister for Children and Young People, because our First Minister doesn't just talk about it, she makes it happen. Because I am the Acting Minister while Aileen Campbell is away. She had a wee boy, Crawford, at the end of December. And this is the first time that we know of a minister being allowed to have a maternity leave, which means that Aileen and her new baby and the rest of her family can take the time to build that so important loving relationship at that early stage in the child's life without having to worry about what's happening at work. So I'm delighted to be the Acting Minister because it shows how important we find this. So thinking of what I was going to say when I was reading about your conference, I was thinking about loving relationships and how they're different nowadays. Now, I'm from a very old loving relationship. My husband and I have been together over 40 years, married over 35 years. So we're quite an old, traditional loving relationship. But recently, friends of mine became the adoptive parents to two wee boys. So there's very much a new family, 4 and 6, becoming a family unit later on, so very much a new family. So I think what you're doing here today and talking about loving relationships, it's about all families, isn't it? All the different kinds of families we have in 21st century Scotland. And I was delighted that one of the very first events that Aileen and I attended when we were in that 4-week transition period of her getting ready to go off maternity leave and me learning what I was about to get into, not a clue until I actually did it. One of the very first things we went to on the 4th of December was the parliamentary reception for Parenting Across Scotland's 10th anniversary. So again, it's really nice. It feels like, you know, I started here and here I am 4 months later at another event with you. It's very important, parenting across Scotland. Your relationship and your work with the Scottish Government is very important to us in the Government. One of the reasons we have funded you with £500,000 from the Early Intervention Fund. But interesting to go through and look at all the work that you do and the significant work that you're doing, working with us in the Family Law Act, the Early Years Framework, the National Parenting Strategy, and of course last year's Children and Young People Act. And that valuable role of working with us continues through the Family Friendly Working Scotland Partnership, through the Fathers Network Scotland and Working Families, and all that is to help us to promote and deliver family-friendly and flexible working. Running through all of that and running through everything that this government does for young people is the mantra, getting it right for every child. And that's because, I'm sure you've seen our hashtag, we want Scotland to be the best place to grow up. So in the Children and Young People's Act last year, we embedded in legislation the GIRFEC principles of well-being and support for every child. We have ensured through that legislation that every child in Scotland will have access to a named person, so that if there are any times in a child's life where the family or the child has worries, there will always be someone for them to turn to. And of course, when there are problems in a child's life, then they will now all have access to a child's plan. All that about making sure that every child in Scotland and their family gets the support they need when they need it, whenever they need it. And the parenting strategy, of course, is a huge part of that and very important. The parenting strategy aims to improve the help and support on offer to parents and to raise the profile and value of parenting, which I think is very important. It recognises the vital role of parents not only in improving the health and well-being and life chances of all our children and young people, but it's also a key to a better Scotland. And for me, that's absolutely important. If we get it right for every child, then we'll get it right for Scotland. The strategy highlights the importance of nurturing relationships, and the more examples of healthy, loving relationships that children experience, the more likely they are to form positive and respectful relationships themselves as they grow older. The strategy uses a wide definition of parenting in recognition of the modern family and influences on child's well-being, as I said in my opening comments. Grandparents, step-parents, kinship carers, foster and adoptive parents, the extended family, each and every one has an important role to play in the care and upbringing of children. Last week I went to my first learning session of the Early Years Collaborative. It was Learning Session 7. Now, Aileen had told me when I took on this role, she says, now you must go to a learning session of the Early Years Collaborative. My goodness, what an event. 700 people in a room, all buzzing and fizzing with what we can do for children. And in the Early Years Collaborative, we look at attachment and we see how important it is, and we do a lot of work in that. Out of the 400 odd projects at the moment in the running through the Early Years Collaborative, 89 of them are on attachment. And for me, I used to be a librarian, so I like my evidence. I like to prove, if you're doing something, prove to me that it works. And that's one of the things that we're doing through the Early Years Collaborative. Through these many projects, we're gathering the evidence of what works, so we understand where to focus. And we also learn what has the biggest impact for every child, every time. And I know that this afternoon, one of the sessions you're going to look at is supporting dads inside and out. I think that's very important, and I think it is really important that we keep talking about the role of dads, because it's very easy for dads to feel when we talk about parenting, they think we're only talking about mum and child, and it's very important that our dads know that they are as important in their child's life. So GIRFEC is for all children, including vulnerable groups like babies affected by parental imprisonment and the wider criminal justice system. And just the other week, the first time that I had to respond to a members' debate in Parliament as the Minister was on a debate on the NSPCC report on babies, an unfair sentence. And what a huge amount of information I learnt through preparing for that debate. But interestingly, just the night before in the garden lobby of Parliament, we'd had a display from a variety of public social partnerships who were working in this area. And for me, it's really important when I'm talking in a debate to actually have met people, talked to people. And I met a wonderful young woman, Kaylee, at the garden lobby the night before, and she'd said that if she hadn't had the support she'd had, then she wouldn't have been the confident mother that she was, and her partner wouldn't have been the confident father that he had become through that support. So we're engaging with families outside around GIRFEC and how we can best support children affected by parental imprisonment. We've given families outside over £400,000 from the Third Sector Early Intervention Fund to continue to raise awareness of the issues faced by families affected by imprisonment. Through the Early Years Change Fund, we've committed £420,000 to Bernardo's to continue the 5 to Thrive project currently running in Perth Prison. This project has been running as one of these public social partnerships, and it's been working with the Scottish Prison Service since September 13, and I've heard good reports about it. And within this project, Bernardo's and Crossreach are piloting approaches to supporting children under 5 affected by parental imprisonment. So I think the work that you'll be doing this afternoon on Dads Inside and Out will help us to build on the work that's already happening. We published Building the Ambition guidance last year. The guidance is designed to support our ambitious and transformational expansion of early learning and childcare. You'll know that as of August last week, we increased the hours of access to free childcare to 600, which is a phenomenal number of hours. But our ambition as an SNP government, if we get re-elected in 2016, is that by 2020 we'll have 1,140 hours of free childcare available to all 3 and 4-year-olds and vulnerable 2-year-olds in Scotland. Why 1,140? Because that's the number of hours that we go to primary school for. So we're very keen that we have that number of hours available for the earlier years. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, can I reiterate that I and this government think that Scotland will flourish when all our children have the opportunity to achieve their potential. It's therefore incumbent in all of us, to support our children in forming attachments and building loving relationships. As Linda said, unfortunately, I can't stay today. I love to stay. I love learning, and that's what today's about. So I'm really disappointed I can't stay. There's just this wee thing at 12 o'clock, happens every Thursday in Parliament. Have to be there for First Minister's questions. So although I can't be here, I do hope that you all have a fantastic day learning, sharing and celebrating everything that we can do to help form loving relationships in all our families across Scotland. Thank you very much.